I got my hands on the Samsung Galaxy S23. Let's check it out. Dave Taylor here, and I got my hands on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Android smartphone. That's this, and it's really nice. I've spent the last week putting it through its paces, using it for phones, using it for camera, using it for video. It's a really sweet phone, and Samsung's done a lot right to make this the next generation and really just to capture so much of what's great about an Android phone. Now, I will warn you right up front that it also includes the Samsung UI, and in addition to having a Google account, you'll need a Samsung account to do something as simple as change the wallpaper, because they have themes, they have all this stuff, but it's all part of the Samsung universe. Yeah, there are ways you can get around it, but it's primarily designed for you to have the Samsung Android experience. Now, if you already have a Samsung phone, you're already in the middle of that and it's no big deal. But if you're coming from an iPhone, if you're coming from a different Android phone like a Google Pixel, you'll be a little surprised that this includes a whole nother layer and it's a little different experience. So we need to start by talking about the difference between the different S23 phones. There are 3 different phones in the lineup. There's the S23, which is this one, and then there's the S23 Plus and the S23 Ultra. And the primary and most obvious difference is screen size. This is a 6.1 inch screen. The S23 Plus is a 6.6 inch screen. And then the S23 Ultra is a 6.8 inch screen. There are some changes in the storage. There are some changes in some of the processor capabilities. And the Ultra has a 200 megapixel camera. This does not have that. This has other cameras, and I have a ton of camera demos, so stick around for that. But really, all 3 of the S23s are really sweet phones. They've done a really nice job with this. So let's start with a tour of the edges and the ports and the plugs. So on the top, there's really nothing to see. On the right-hand side is power, volume up and down. On the bottom, you can see there's USB-C for charging, there's the SIM slot, and there's a cutout for speaker. And then on the left-hand side, again, there's nothing. On the back, there are 3 different cameras and a little tiny flash. And the cameras, I will again get into those in just a minute, but just a quick heads up. There's a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 10 megapixel telephoto camera. On the front, it is 99% screen, but there's a tiny little punch out, and that is the front-facing camera, and that selfie camera is a 12 megapixel camera. Now, I want to talk about the screen for a second. So this has an AMO LED screen at 2340 by 1080, and it features Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and this is the latest from Corning. It looks like I brought it up something different here. That's okay. And it is pretty darn tough glass. So you probably don't need a screen protector, but I generally like to have them on my expensive phones. I would definitely put it in a case, even though, again, they're pretty rugged nowadays, but it's awful easy to drop it onto a surface and have it get injured, and that's not fun. So this has 8 gig of RAM and 128 gig of storage. The S23 can go up to 256 gig of storage. And all of the S23 line are powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 octa-core, maxing out at 3.36 gigahertz. Android 13, Bluetooth 5.3, dual SIM capable, including a physical SIM. And AT&T sent me this phone to review, so they sent me a SIM card. That was very nice of them. I did do an unboxing. You should definitely check that out. I will just tell you super briefly, SIM removal tool, and perhaps most importantly, USB-C to USB-C charging cable, and that's pretty much everything. It's a pretty slim box. Now, let's go back to the cameras. So what I want to do is I want to actually show you, I took a ton of photos at different places, but I want to show you the 50 megapixel main camera, which is an f1.8 at 85-degree field of view, the 12 megapixel ultra wide, which is an f2.2 an 80-degree field of view, and the 10 megapixel telephoto at f2.4 with a 36-degree field of view. Now, let's switch over. So, these photos I took at the same river location. You can see we're starting with wide angle. Then I switched to a normal, no zoom, no wide angle. Then a 3x zoom and a 10x zoom. And at 10x zoom, you're starting to see that it's a little bit more of a zoom than that can actually pick up details, but it's still a pretty cool looking photo. Now, on the macro side, the macro is probably the most disappointing feature on this camera and on the phone. As you can see that I can have close and I can get closer, but none of it's really crisp. It's all, again, there's a little bit of artifacting and stuff, which is just, I don't know, it's just the camera is not quite capturing the data. And what's interesting is that when you look at the pictures on your screen, they look crystal clear. But what's actually captured is a little bit more sort of chalky and chunky and blocky and stuff. It's not quite as good. I also tried night photography because one of the things that Samsung's very proud of is that they have their advanced nightography feature. I put the phone on a tripod, gently tapped the button, and here's the result. This is pretty darn impressive. This is the middle of the night, so you can see all the stars just come right out and stuff. Very cool. Now, I flipped the whole phone around and here's a selfie. And again, the nuance, the detail, the gradation of colors and stuff, it's very, very good. And that's just the front-facing camera. So let's switch to videos, probably a lot more fun. Same location at the river. And so here's a wide-angle video. Here's just a regular video capture. And here's a 3x zoom, and again, really beautiful video footage. And I can't resist having a little fun with all the other features, so here's some slow motion river. And to compensate for that, here's some time lapse of it going super fast. Finally, here is a selfie video. So this is a demonstration of the selfie video mode, and as you can see, it's really clean and crisp. And the audio, I'm just using the phone itself for the audio pickup, and it sounds pretty darn good. So lots to like here. As you can see, the phone takes great videos and great photos as long as you're not using macro. I just did a lot of tests with macro photography at different lengths and different close-ups and different zoom levels, and what you see on your screen looks beautiful. It looks like you're almost using like binoculars or something, but what it captures tends to be a lot more chunky and a lot more disappointing. So that's something to know about. If you really want to do macro photography, maybe you like sell things on Etsy or eBay or something, then you might want to double check and test this phone for yourself before you decide it's going to work for you. Oh, and specs wise, the front camera is a 12 megapixel f2.2 with an 80-degree field of view. And of course, all of these can be used for things like Zoom and Skype and other video conferencing systems and such. So the phone has a ton of capabilities. So really, the last thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the battery and the battery life. So this features a 3900 milliamp hour battery, which is a bump up from the previous generation of the Galaxy. And that gives you 35 hours of talk time. And I had this on standby for a couple of days because I just had other stuff going on. And I was pretty impressed. In 48 hours of being on standby, not turned off, but just sitting, it lost maybe 10% of its battery. That's remarkable, which means if you have this thing fully charged up, it will just chug along for days and be ready for you, which is such a nice improvement over there's so many older phones where, if you've been using it for 8 or 10 hours, then you really need to charge it up again because it's just run out of battery. This definitely has a lot better charge and a lot better battery life. I will note that this also has a maximum 25 watt wireless Qi and wired charging. Now for Qi charging, generally that's a lower wattage anyway, but if you want to plug it in, The bigger S23s can handle a higher wattage charge, which means they'll charge faster. So this one's a bit of a slower charge than the S23 Plus and the S23 Ultra. On the other hand, it's also less expensive. So, you got some nice trade-offs. This is giving you the vast majority of the technology of the more expensive S23s, but it's giving it to you in a nice small form factor. This is really pretty small. It is 5.8 inches by 2.8 inches by 3/10 of an inch thick, and it's 6 ounces. It's very light and very small, and as you can see, the screen is basically edge to edge. It's really a lot that Samsung's got right with this. So we need to talk about colors and price, but before we get there, I'm going to ask if you could subscribe to my channel. You can tell I am very hands-on. I give you lots of demos. I explain things. I'm always honest and candid. I'll give you the straight scoop of what's good and what's not so good. So please go ahead and click subscribe. Click on that bell icon to get notifications. And if you did find this valuable, go ahead and give me a like or two. I really appreciate that. Cool. All right. This is the Samsung Galaxy S23 Android smartphone, and it comes in black or green or lavender, this color, or cream. And if you order it directly from Samsung, there are 4 additional color options. I got this from AT&T. They very generously sent it to me so I could review it. Thank you, AT&T. And this phone, the Samsung Galaxy S23, is $799.99 or $22.22 a month times 36 months at AT&T.com. And if you pre-order it, I'm not sure if you still have time, but if you move quick, if you pre-order this phone, you can actually get double the storage for free. So that's pretty handy. Lots to like here. Really a great step forward with the Samsung Galaxy Android experience, and really a solid competitor to the latest Pixel, to the latest Apple iPhone. So definitely worth checking out. That's all I got. So I'll catch you in my next video.